because sometimes I've had issues before.
Okay.
There we go. We're all recording. So thank you so much. We've done the formalities. So those that are joining us, please write in the chat your name and where you're joining us from. Thank you for being with us. We plan to be together today for about an hour and a half, and I'm going to say a little bit about what the overall purpose of the call is. So welcome to this wonderful collaboration between Rotary Action for Peace and World Beyond War. Before continuing, a reminder. The third at 1 EDT is the official launch of this program. Today is just for the country project.
Bill, if you could hold on a second, would you all mute yourselves, please?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And the third is going to be the official launch. So the difference between today and the third is that today is just for the country project team. So it's very special just for us, the country project teams, where the call on Friday is open to the general public. So please share far and wide with as many people as you can. Bring your friends, family, networks, etc., to come and join us. Before talking about the specifics, we as a collective are making history here. This project, this initiative, and the bringing together of 13 countries all together has never been done before in this way. So welcome to the movement. Welcome to us as building history. So thank you for being part of this journey with us. Here's some specifics to give you as a bit of a flavor of what we're going to be covering today. One is that we're going to be talking a little bit about the program context. How did this idea come about? And where did some of the inspiration come from? Secondly, I want to say a little bit specifics about what the program purpose is, what the process is involved, and some of the expected products. When I say products, I mean outputs, but it sounds good, purpose, process, products. So we wrote it like this. And then another part is that hopefully you as country project teams, and that's coordinators, mentors, and young people participants going through the program, are going to walk away with this idea. You're going to know exactly what you need to know and do to achieve success in this program. So we're going to lay out some of the expectations, both from our point of view and for all the country project teams. So that's a little bit about gaining clarity around expectations. Before doing that, it's nice to know who's here, so please write in the chat, but let's do something a bit interactive. And this is why you need to put your cameras on. Let's do something a bit interactive. Okay, so write in the chat your name and your country. In addition to that, please put your cameras on if you want to, so we can see each other. And I'm going to ask a question. And if the answer is yes, you're going to either shout yes, wave like this, or stand up. Okay, and part of the idea of this is to get a sense of who's with us. So if you are from the continent Africa, stand up, shout, wave your hands, etc., so we can see. We have, hey, we can see some. So we've got a great, wonderful team from that continent. We have Cameroon, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Sudan. Okay, great. If you are from Europe or the UK, do the same. Put your hands up, shout, or stand up. Hey, okay, great. If you are from North America, so that's the US or Canada, do the same. Shout, stand up, whatever you want to do. Hey, okay, great, wave. Okay, peace, good stuff, Tom. If you are from South America, so we have Colombia and Venezuela, do the same. Stand up, shout, etc. Hey, there's Maria Fernanda, hey. Okay, great. If you are concerned about war in the world and want to see more peace brought to people and the planet, stand up, shout, wave your hands. Okay. Perfect. So what do we see here? Well, one, we've recorded you doing this, so this will be great. You're recorded for all eternity. No, the reason why we do that is because we can see there's wonderful diversity in the group from different countries, from different continents, from different age generations as well. And at the same time, there's unity in the group. We are all concerned about war. We are all interested in promoting peace. So thank you. It's nice to get a kind of sense who's here with us. So I'm going to keep admitting. So thank you so much. So let's look at the specifics now. So we've seen who's here today. We always start, it's nice to start with saying thank you for actually recognizing what brought us all here together. And we're all here together because we can accomplish more together. It makes sense if we collaborate. In order to kind of say a little bit about the purpose of the program, we really need to start with what the focus of the program is all about. And that is young people. And I want to start by saying thank you to young people to start with, because in a sense, this project came about, this project arose in response to young people asking myself and World Beyond War if we could put together a project which would engage young people in peace education and peace action, and which would draw on some of the work that I've done before, etc. So really, a massive thank you goes to young people, and some of the young people, by the way, are on the call. So thank you so much for that recommendation. The question was then, we need to say another thank you, was, okay, well, who should we collaborate with? I'm just going to forward this. So World Beyond War, just to give you a bit of a sense, is a global grassroots organization with membership in 192 countries and counting. Chapters and affiliates all around the world. We've got some chapters with us, including Helen from Canada today, Guy from Cameroon, etc. We differentiate ourselves. We work towards differentiating ourselves from other organizations around the world in two ways. One, global in scope. Two, we go after what is considered really the biggest threat to peace, and that's the war system. So not just war out there in other countries, the preparation of war, etc. So that is our big focus. So the question was then, well, who are we going to collaborate with? So then a massive, massive, massive thank you to Rotary and the Rotary Action Group for Peace. We thought we would collaborate with this wonderful organization. Some of you might not be aware of who Rotary is, or the Rotary Action Group for Peace. So what I want to do now is invite our colleague Alison Sutherland just to give a few words about, well, who's Rotary and who's Rotary Action Group for Peace, and why did World Beyond War invite Rotary into this collaboration? Alison, can you say a few words, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, Rotary is probably one of the biggest service organizations in the world. We currently have around 1.25 million members in over 200 countries. Each person is a volunteer. It has 7 areas of focus, one of which is peace and other environment. I won't bore you with the rest. Now, every Rotarian has a passion, and the joy of the Rotary Action Group for Peace is that brings all Rotarians who have an interest and passion for peace together. And that's who I represent on this call. There's around 2,000 of them. Many of them are on this call. And Rotary exists in communities to support communities. It also exists to, and very much to develop youth. And youth leadership and so on is the core of what we do. And so because of that, you'll have Rotarians on this call, you'll have Rotarians who have funded some of the students, and you'll have Rotarian members. So that's just a very quick rundown of who Rotary is.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you. And I'll come back to you, Alison, just quickly. When you were invited, or when we approached, yourself, and really you deserve a massive kind of hats off and thank you, because you've been kind of leading this in collaboration with many other Rotarians that are on the call. I'll say something about them shortly. What interested you about collaborating, about joining forces with World Beyond War on this initiative?
Well, you're going to go pink now because you were the number one, being a peace fellow, being someone from my own country, being someone that I work well with. And I'd never considered working with World Beyond War before, because I always thought I connected it with negative peace and not positive peace, which is very much what the action group is about. But then the more that we got to chat, the more you told me about your educational programs and the vast range of things that you're doing, I recognize it's an amazing organization and one that we should be collaborating with. And there's so much synergy. And yes, I just want to be part of it.
Oh, I'm feeling the love here. We are feeling the love. Thank you. Well, I will say a little bit about the interest, you know, for us as well. Of course, we've got the background of working with World Beyond War, of working with the Rotarians beforehand as well. But it makes strategic sense if we're going to think about a first of its kind project of bringing different generations, different cultures together. Then Rotary is definitely up there in terms of a leading organization. Being a Rotary Peace Fellow myself, and also a Positive Peace Activator, that was, you know, very interesting. But again, this could never start without you, Alison, kind of saying, yes, let's do this and let's work together and put together an MOU with between the Rotary Action Group for Peace and World Beyond War. So thank you. The other massive thank you we have to give is to many other Rotarians that have been working with us on this collaboration for at least a year now. It's really a co-creation. So hats off and shout out to many of that are on the global team that are on the call, including Sarah, including Jackie, including Tom, including Jim, including Susan, including many others that are far too many to kind of list. But we have been meeting up as a global team for some time now, at least once a week, to go through progress, to co-create this effort, to troubleshoot, etc. So thank you to the global team for being with us on this journey and for your input. We cannot do any of this work, doesn't matter if we have the best curriculum, best material, which we really do have good curriculum and material, which is very, very good. We cannot do any of this. Like the same with World Beyond War, we rely on global grassroots movements, and we rely on people on the ground really doing the work. So we cannot do any of this work without you, yes, you, the country project teams in 13 countries. So a massive thank you to the coordinators, massive thank you to the mentors, and a massive thank you to, at the end of the day, why we're here, the young people, you know, to learn from and with you. And hopefully we can share a bit of knowledge on the way as well. It's a kind of co-creation, you know, learning together. So massive thank you to you all for making this program available to your countries. You know, what a cool program to bring 13 different partner countries together across 4 different continents with different generations from different sectors, from different interests, etc., for the purpose of shared learning. So thank you to the country project teams. And thank you to everybody who's involved. You will see, actually, I've been working on the week 1 content, which you'll be looking at next week, that everybody has a role to play in peace building. That comes from a Johan Galton kind of saying, that we're all in this together. There's no lone rangers. Even a lone ranger had a team. We're all in this together, and we can learn so much from each other. Different people bring different expertise, but we're all in this together. Said something about World Beyond War. So World Beyond War is the people that
Phil,
put the content.
Can I ask you to pause? May I?
Yes.
There are many people who've just joined, and
Okay.
it would be lovely if you could all rename yourself. To do that, take your browser, put it on your picture. You see 3 dots. Click on the dots and you get a pull down. At the bottom, it says rename. If you could put your country first and then your full name, that will help us greatly to work out where you're from. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks, Alison. Thank you. So just to give you a heads up, as I'm going to be saying a little bit more about the specifics of the project, but you know that there's 2 parts. One is peace education and one is peace action. We're particularly strong within World Beyond War with peace action, and we've got global recognition and won many awards for our educational material. So we have a proven track record, and actually we've got people on the call that have been through our courses. We've just finished another one which had 150 on the course, and a real intergenerational collaboration and learning. I think the oldest was 94 that I know that was on the course. So how about that for intergenerational work? So there's a little bit about the content that you're going to be getting, but let's say something about some of the rationale, so why the program exists. Well, one, we as in Rotarians on the call, Rotary Action Group for Peace and World Beyond War, we're all concerned about, war, and we're all interested in how we can bring about more peace in the world. And we know that there's no viable approach to achieving sustainable peace and development that does not include the meaningful participation of young people. That's the good news. The bad news is that young people are too often overlooked in peace building work. They are often seen as perpetrators of violence or victims of violence. We need to include young people more as equal partners, as leaders for peace, and support them and learn from their creativity, their resilience, their leadership. So this is the argument that, in a sense, has been forming a lot of the thinking behind the program and some of the work I've done before, equipping young people with the tools, networks, and support to promote peace and challenge war is one of the largest, most global and important challenges facing humanity, bar none. Why? There are more young people on the planet than ever before in the whole of history. If we're not including young people meaningfully, then we cannot reach the UN Sustainable Development Goals if we don't include young people. So that is a kind of a driving force behind the program. What is our broader idea of, if we begin with the end in mind, what is the impact? What's the difference that we want to try and contribute to or make through this program? Well, one is that our ambition is to connect and support a new generation of peace builders. Part of the wonderful thing about this program is that there's going to be opportunities for people from Ukraine, Russia, to learn from young people and others from Venezuela, from South Sudan, Cameroon, Kenya, Canada, US. How cool is that? We can all learn something from each other, even the relatively, let's say, more peaceful countries, according to the IEP, US, Canada, etc., can learn so much from the less relatively peaceful countries, South Sudan, Venezuela, etc. We can learn so much from each other. This program has been created and curated to enable that community of inquiry and practice to happen, to enable that collaboration to happen. That's why it's a first of its kind in this way. The other idea is to contribute to peace and development in these countries, because what will be happening is that the young people, with support of the mentors and the country project team, will be putting together peace projects which will address urgent community needs in these contexts. So that is another. And I've said here, in terms of contributing to the YPS, what I mean by that is the Youth Peace and Security Agenda. There's been a massive focus over the last 6 years in particular on youth peace and security. So our aim in this is to contribute to that global goal, but at a local level in each of the different countries. So this is the aim. The question is, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to share a model here, which I'm going to share a couple of models. One is more with the kind of scholarly practitioner hat on, which gives a sense of what we're going to be doing together. I put this together more recently, so this might be new for the global team, actually. But in a sense, the program will go through 4 different components, which are split up into 2 parts. Part 1 is the peace education. So that's kind of learning about peace, conflict, violence, power, war, etc. We bring together 13 country project teams to do this, to go through what we're calling a youth-led, intergenerational, cross-cultural developmental process. So it's about going through part 1, education, study, and then going through to part 2, which in a sense has three components: research, activism, and advocacy. So what the teams will do, the country project teams will do, is work together to study an issue that they care about, or that they're interested in, or that they're concerned about. They will then develop an action plan from that research to then go and do activism, to go and implement that project and put into practice some of the learning that they've been engaging in through the peace education part. And at the end, the advocacy part, it could be called communication, but I've put it here because it's more convenient, would be about doing the projects and then trying to influence the influencers. There's another kind of term that you might influence the influencers. So communicate the outputs of your projects to more people, so different stakeholders, etc., other Rotarians, to try and influence the influence, to try and widen the sphere of influence of your projects to engage more people. Country project teams have been sent this, and this is in a sense the journey that we're going to be on together over the next 14 weeks. We're now in part 1, the orientation and the launch part. In the next couple of days, we'll move through to the formative assessment, where you'll have access to the online learning platform and be asked to introduce yourself to each other, and also complete a baseline assessment, which will help us understand your developmental needs as emerging peace builders. And then you'll work through 6 weeks of peace education, and then part 2, the projects, etc. And then at the end, there's a chance for you to actually gain 2 certificates. One from part 1, which is if you complete all of the 6 optional assignments, you will get a certificate of completion signed from both Rotary Action Group for Peace and World Beyond War. And then part 2 is if you actually design, implement, evaluate, and communicate a project, you will get become certified peace builders. So there's a little bit about the project. It's a collaboration. It's a collaboration first and foremost between Rotary Action for Peace and World Beyond, but it's a collaboration with many other organizations and partners and individuals in 13 different countries. I'll say out loud who those countries are for everybody's benefit. We have 4 in Africa, and they are Cameroon, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Sudan. In Europe and UK, we have Serbia, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and Wales. And in North America, we have Canada and the United States, and in Latin America, South America, we have Colombia and Venezuela. So those are the 13. What a wonderful mix of countries we have. And each of the country project teams has locally embedded partners, which is vital for those that work in the peace building field, vital for encouraging local buy-in, which is vital for encouraging sustainability of projects. I think, to give an example, and Nigeria, I was counting the other day, I think Nigeria has something like 8 or 9 different organizations involved, if I'm right. And I think Kenya has quite a few as well as Cameroon as well, including World Beyond War chapters, including WILF, and foundations, etc. This is brilliant to bring all these different organizations together. So let me say something out loud very, very quickly, and those might have seen this that have been through the information sessions, but some might not. But I'm going to say out loud, and actually this might be quite new for the global team, because I've been working the last week on some of the ideas with regards to what will go into part 1. And I've come up with titles, and shout out to some of the people that are on the call that I've been running ideas back, in particularly Susan Smith. Thank you so much for your great feedback on week 1's material. I think it's coming along nicely now. So peace education part 1, we'll bring together, we'll train, we'll support, we'll equip at least 150 people. 130 of them will be young people. So 10 young people from each of the country project teams. And actually it'll be more than 150, and then at least 30 mentors and coordinators also would go through the program. Each program, each week, and I'll show you shortly, you will access an online learning platform, and you're expected to spend 3 to 6 hours per week studying the material and engaging with each other online. The only exception to that is that we will have 3 live Zoom calls, which we're going to be in contact with you all shortly about this shortly. In the broadest sense, this 6 weeks, and I think this is a useful way of thinking about it, is split up into 3 parts. Part 1 is the knowing part of peace building. Part 2 is the being part, so it's the heart part. Where the knowing part is the head part, the being part is the heart part. And then part 3 is the hands part, the doing part. More specifically, these are working titles for each of the modules or the parts that we're going to be working on. Module 1 is going to be part 1, which is 2 modules, is going to be called Understanding Peace Building. Part 2, which has modules 3 and 4, is going to be called Becoming a Peace Builder, Developing a Way of Being. Part 3, which has modules 5 and 6, is going to be called Doing and Communicating Peace Projects, a Collaborative Approach. How do we do projects in collaborative ways? A big criticism of peace building today is that many projects are imposed on people. So actually this week 5 and 6 will look at how do we do it in collaboration. And actually this week draws a lot from the book that I should be writing, which will be called something along those lines, actually, drawing on the PhD. So there's a bit of an idea. More specifically, week 1, which you'll start on Monday, is going to be called Introduction to Peace Building. And it will be covering 4 different things. 1, key terminology. So what is peace building? What are common themes in peace building? 2, what are some of the key concepts in peace building that we need to be aware of, that you need to be aware of if you want to work in the peace building field? 3, what are some of the key considerations that we need to know about if we want to work in the peace building field? And then 4, what is the role of young people in peace building? So it has 4 different sections, week 1. Week 2 will be called Understanding Systems and Their Influence on War and Peace, and it will be split into 3 sections. 1, looking at what are systems, what is systems thinking. The second section will look at how the current war system works. The third section will be peace systems, and there's a couple of good peace systems out there. The IEP, Positive Peace, is a good one. There's also some great work by some professors at Columbia University and some others that have also put together an overview of what a peace system is. We put forward our version of what a peace system is, based on our award-winning, globally recognized research and scholarship on what we think a peace system is. So that will be the third section. Then and here it is, this is our peace system. And you'll be having a look at this as you move through. Part 2, which is modules 3 and 4. Module 3 will be called Ways of Being with Self. This is really about turning the mirror inwards, looking at yourself. A lot of the peace building work, too much, is often looked at, let's analyze things out there in other countries or in our communities without turning the mirror inwards. As Gandhi rightly said, be the change you want to see in the world, you know, so it's about looking at yourself. It's about looking at my identity as a peace builder, my values, reflective practice. How do I self-manage and self-regulate and myself before engaging with others? Then module 4 is called Ways of Being with Others. And it might likely, I need to look at this a bit more, be split up into 3 sections. 1, the importance of relationships. 2, active listening. And 3, how do we facilitate a dialogue? There's the dog there. And then part 3 is called, will be split up into modules 5 and 6, which is basically module 5 is how do we design and implement a project? In order to do that, we need to understand what is a project, what is project management, what is a peace project, and how do we design and implement a peace project? So that is what module 5 will look at. Module 6 will look at how do we monitor and evaluate and communicate a project. So it will be giving advice, practical tips and tools for communicating your projects to different audiences. So you might want to do a video, you might want to write an article, you might want to write an op-ed. We'll be giving some ideas with regards to that. For those of you that don't know Canvas, I think actually what I'll do at this point is I'll stop sharing it. I'm going to actually show you, and just, I think it's better to actually show you. Can you
that was one of the questions, Phil, the platform.
Okay. Can you see my screen here?
Yes, thank you.
Can you see the, so this is the online learning platform, and you will enter something that looks like this, the online learning platform. And I'm going to put a video together for you these days to be an attempt to be helpful, but you would basically have different modules, and you would come into the welcome part, and you would have a welcome video here, which I will put together these days, and some information about the program and who the facilitators are, etc. And then each module will be split up into different, well, we have 3 parts, so 3 parts and 6 modules. So for example, module 1 would have the introduction, you know, what you would have an introduction video, which I need to change this, so don't worry about too much about the titles, but you would have an introduction from your facilitator. Tony Jenkins is going to be your facilitator for week 1, who's the coordinator for the Global Campaign for Peace Education, and he's going to be introducing week 1 when I've just sent him some information to look through to. And then what happens is that you will have content to read through, and photos and images and resources, etc. And you would read through this in your own time and your own way. So there's no need to be on a particular time. This is the wonderful thing about the program, is that you can be on it at 3 o'clock in the morning if you want to. And then you would read through the information, etc., etc., etc. And then you would come to the end of the week and you would be asked questions based on what you've read. Obviously, there's no responses as yet because we haven't started the program. So I'm going to give you an example of what one would look like in the last course. Actually, here we go. So here's the example from the last course that we've just done, called War in the Environment. And you would come to the end of the week, and then you would be asked, you have two sections where you can engage together. One is the discussion forum, and the other one is the optional assignments. And they both ask you questions based on what you've read. And if you complete the optional assignments, you will get a certificate if you complete all 6. So this is how it works. You would basically type in your answer, and if the facilitator would start by saying hello and things like this, and then you would answer one of the questions. So for example, here's some of the questions based on the last course that we did. What do people think wars are fought for, and what are they really fought for? What would knowledge of what wars are fought for do to support for wars? So we will come up with some questions based on what you've engaged in throughout that week. I can tell you now that week 1 will be looking at how do you define peace? That's one question in your context. Another question is discuss your experiences with peace building. What did you find challenging? What did you find easy? Another one will be, oh, something drawn on the screen there. Another one will be, how do you understand conflict and engage with conflict? So that's the other question as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the online learning program. I'm going to admit some more here. Let me just take a stop, and that's part 1. That's 6 weeks. That's part 1. But I know that I've spoke quite a bit, so let us just take a little break, a moment, or just let's just check in with people. Is there any questions?
I have a question for you. I have a question for you, Phil. We have someone on the call who says that I'm not part of the youth cohort, but part of the hub. What does this mean? Do I have access to the material?
I'm not so sure what that means in terms of part of the hub. Basically, each. Does it say?
Maybe we'll ask which country. That will help us.
Yeah, if you can let us know. So let me just say, while you're looking at that, Alison, out loud. So each country project team, and you would have had many emails on this, will be made up of 14 or more people. 2 coordinators, and the 2 coordinators really are the strategic leadership in each country. Okay, so although we put together a program, a structure, a process, it's really up to the country project coordinators to have the overall leadership of what happens in that country. So that means recruiting the mentors, which there will be 2 mentors who will work with the young people through the process, and also recruiting the young people. I've said this in emails at least twice, and I actually think it's really useful saying it out loud again. The secret sauce of this program, doesn't matter if we have the best content ever, the secret sauce of this program is the work that you do in your country project teams. So it's really, really important that you give deliberate and careful thought to developing the best country project team you can, with the best coordinators, with the best mentors, with the best young people. Of course, best is very subjective. You decide. It's not up to World Beyond War or Rotary Action Group for Peace to decide who the country project teams will be. We really have designed it in a way to allow for innovation and creativity to come from each country project team. So whoever that person was, they'd have to kind of reach out to me. So Venezuela. Venezuela. Okay, so so I know Annie and probably others are on the call from Venezuela. We can follow up, and you'd have to kind of be in touch with me with regards to that, whether they're coordinators or their mentors or their young people. I've been in touch with all of the country project teams, coordinators and mentors and some young people over the last 6 months. So please follow up with me if there's any questions on that one. Any other questions?
Another question. Phil, when I do this question, will you make DG Jackie co-host?
Yes.
To help me with something.
Okay.
So another question is, what team meets every week? Who sets up the meetings, the youth or the mentor? Yes. Who takes the initiative, as it's not to be a process of imposition?
Oh, I really love that question, and it's very aligned with my way of thinking. This is the the whole idea is that we've set up a structure. We recommend that country project teams be in touch with each other at least once a week as they go through the process. As they go through the process, part 1 and part 2, we've highly recommend, and it's part of the criteria of becoming certified peace builders, that they meet at least once a week during their peace projects. And I'm going to say something about that shortly, actually, so to not kind of say all about it now, but it's up to you when you meet, how you meet, for how long you meet. We recommend at least once a week for 1 hour to talk through. So, and again, this is where innovation is, that we designed a program to allow for innovation to come from the ground up. That you decide whether you want to meet, Zoom and what you want to do. But one idea as you go through part 1, and this would actually help us in terms of monitoring and evaluation, by the way, so it'd be very useful, is to reflect on what you're learning. Here's one thing that I will say here with my education hat on. Good education, significant education does not take place just by reading. Good education, significant education does not just take place by doing something either. Effective education, significant education, in the way in which I understand it, requires reflection. It requires thinking about things and being critical. So please, in your country project teams, get together once a week and reflect on some of the things together that you're learning. Of course, you'll be doing this on the online learning platform as well. But I think if part of the idea of this program is a byproduct is to try in some way to build trust, which we know that there's sometimes a lack of trust between adults and young people, and is to try and build relationships to get young people and adults working together and learning from each other. So that's a wonderful way of bringing the country project teams together to kind of learn together as well on this.
Another question, Phil?
Yeah.
Those questions, so the questions that you're asking in the various sections, can be responded to at any time, correct? So if I complete 1 week in 2 days, can I immediately answer or not?
Oh, that's a very good question, and you will have information about this when you get into the online learning platform. But basically, the way in which it's set up is that your content will become available officially on the Monday. So, for example, next week, your content will officially become available on that Monday, and you will have until the following Wednesday, so more or less 10 days. And this will all be in the online learning platform, by the way, so it's all laid out for you. You have basically 10 days to respond to those questions. And then the facilitator for that week has time to respond to those by the following Sunday, by the following Sunday. It's all laid out. You can, for example, do all of the course in 2 days. We only open up like week 2 in another week's time. Okay, so does that make sense? So you can only work on the 1 week that comes open. But you can, if you go through to, like, let's say week 5 and 6, you can go back again to week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, etc. If you want to engage a little bit more. This probably it might be a bit confusing for you now, but it's all explained, and there's people on the call that have been on our courses lots of times before. It's all explained how that physically works as soon as you get into the online learning platform.
So one more question, and then I have a raised hand. I have a PDF timeline with online sessions. Do we have the hours already? I work in the morning.
Yes, it's another good question. These are really good questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for these questions. This is really useful.
I'm sorry. That's my question. It is because I have to work in the mornings.
Okay.
And we have online sessions. I'm worried about the permissions. For example, if those are mandatories, do I have to do like a letter for my boss, or do I have to do something else because I want to do the entire course with responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And lovely to meet you, Columbia Rotary. Thank you. Very good question. And I'm sure that there's many other people that have the same question. So thank you for that question. We're trying to accommodate, and we can never accommodate all of them, but we're trying to accommodate the different time zones. There will be 3 live sessions in part 1. And the idea probably is to go for 1 EDT time, as in now, to try and accommodate the different time zones. And also we did it thinking about that it might be lunchtime as well so you're in Colombia, so it'll be 12 for you, maybe it'll be lunchtime for you, where in other people in Africa, it will be perhaps leaving time. We can't accommodate all, One idea is to try it out at that time, the first time, and then adapt for the second live session. I'm waiting back for the facilitator, but there might be a live session. I'm still waiting back from them next Wednesday, the 8th, at 1 EDT, and it will be 2 hours. And we're going to invite the facilitator for week 1 and the facilitator for week 2. And most of the live sessions will include a mix of presenting material or presenting ideas, or a skills practice, and definitely breakout rooms where we get to engage with each other and learn from each other. So that's a great question. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to try and accommodate as best as we can, knowing that we can accommodate all at all times, but it would be, I think there's a requirement, and again, this is online in terms of the requirements for becoming certified, that you attend at least 1 of the live sessions in part 1. We haven't spoke about part 2 yet. Shall I, is there other questions?
One more question, Phil. Can we just finish these? Would you be kind enough?
Yeah.
So for South Sudan and Kenya, the participants are separated by both distance and poor internet. Does Canvas have a group meeting capability that would allow those CPTs to interact with themselves in synchro?
It's a very good question. And I know that because I've been in contact with many from Kenya and South Sudan and others with regards to this. One thing we want to say is that as part of the application process, and remember that this is young people are receiving sponsorships in a sense, to engage in this program, that we laid out in the application form that people tick that they know that they are attending this program and being sponsored to attend, and that they know that that they need to have good internet connection, because that was in the application form. so that was in the application form, you know, and at the same time, we're going to try and flex as much as we can. One idea that we could do is that people, and actually there's people on the call from Cameroon, our World Beyond War chapter, who know this, that we could lend our Zoom account to people that want to do that, you know. And again, the other thing is so there's one idea. We could lend, if you wanted to do a group call with, you know, with people from South Sudan, Kenya, etc., we could lend our Zoom account to you. Another one is that, and this comes from experience actually, so not on this program, in other places, different country project teams will work out their own best way of being in communication with each other. You know, some, I know it's quite difficult now in terms of COVID, but some might want to meet face to face. If you're far apart, that can't be done, but you need to work it out and be creative, you know, in terms of maybe a WhatsApp group, which I know many of the teams have already got WhatsApp groups and they're already in communication with each other. Whoever that is with regards to Kenya and South Sudan, because I've been working with people quite a lot, please reach out to me and we can, so in Kenya, you've got John, Tim, Donna, and Christine, who are kind of the coordinators, mentors, wonderful collaborators. So reach out to them and think through ideas. And in South Sudan, we've got very different people, but on the call is John Ruhr, Dr. John Ruhr, who's part of the World Beyond War. He's our board member. Reach out to him and others with regards to that about South Sudan. Great question. Thank you.
Last comment, Phil, and then you can move on. We had several folks saying that they think that the mandatory sessions live should be at weekends, but you also have the difficulty of Saturday and Sunday, and one faith Saturday, maybe the religious day, Sunday another. So it might cut across that and decisions might need to be made by our participants.
Yeah, it's a good point. Hey, listen, we're all in this together. We're all in this together and it's co-created. So let's discuss that. And if people think that it might have to be on a Saturday and Sunday, we have to go to and speak to our facilitators and see if they're available as well. Thank you for bringing it up. We try our best to try and accommodate wherever we can. So let's think about that, and particularly us as the, you know, the global team. Let's think about that moving forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We're up to date with questions.
Perfect. Great questions. Really cool questions. Thank you, everyone. So let us move on. We've said hopefully out loud a bit about part one. Let us say out loud now some bits about part two. Oh, this is just to give you an idea. Many people have gone through our courses. The content. A note about the content. The content is drawn broadly from it's put together by World Beyond War as part one. And also from practical experience as well. So it kind of comes from research, science-based ideas about what's needed to promote peace and challenge war, but also practical experience. And we have wonderful people that we've worked with on our courses so far. That's peace. That's part one. Part two is peace action. So this is where you have opportunities to work together in your country project teams to design, implement, monitor, evaluate, and communicate your projects within 8 weeks. The expectation again is that you spend between 3 to 6 hours a week working on your projects. At least one of those hours will be a weekly check-in between your country projects teams. And that, again, we allow for innovation, but one idea in terms of the check-ins will be, what have we done? What were some of the issues and challenges, and what are we going to do the next week? So there will be milestones for each of the 8 weeks. A note on that for mentors and coordinators, there will be a training for coordinators and mentors around how to work effectively with young people through the process of designing, implementing, communicating youth-led, adult-supported, community-engaged projects. So there's going to be a training, and we're going to be in touch with mentors and coordinators about that before you start that process. The idea here is to put together a project in each of the countries. So the impact would be projects in each of the countries, and also an event where you communicate the outputs of that project. So it could be a conference, it could be a gathering, it could be social media campaign, etc. We're going to talk about that as we move forward in terms of the peace action part. The other really cool thing about this is that we're developing what we're calling an intergenerational cross-cultural community of practice. So in addition to your weekly meetings with your country project team, we will have at least 2, and we need to discuss this more probably with the global team, at least 2 reflection group meetings. And what we mean by that is we will organize it in such a way where South Sudan and Kenya and Cameroon and Venezuela will come together online on Zoom and present their ongoing process with regard to their projects, to test out their ideas, to gain feedback from other countries, and as an opportunity to really foster and harvest cross-cultural learning. So this is a really cool thing. So facilitating both south and north conversations around peace building. So we will have at least 2 of those during the 8 weeks of the project. So there's a little bit about the project. In a sense, there's many different steps in part 2, but in broad sense, you could think of it like this. Week 1 and week 2, potentially, we do the research. We find out what the needs are. And we don't just do that just by reading a book. We do what we call primary research. We actually, and actually you will have a training on a methodology called participatory action research. So how do we do research with the community, not about them or for them? How do we do research with the community? And we use that research to develop an action plan. And then we implement that action plan within the next 6 weeks. And in that process, we ensure that we engage stakeholders along the way in terms of trying out our ideas, adapting, being iterative. So we don't just put the plan, right, this is what we're going to implement. We put a plan together and then we implement it. And if it needs changing along the way, we change it. So it's about being flexible. There's a really good approach in peace building, adaptive peace building. The world is complex.
Bill?
Pardon?
Question, sorry. We've been asked, is it 1 project per country or multiple projects?
That's a very good question as well. And these are things, again, that we designed it in such a way to allow for innovation. Microsoft and others might say that, you know, a good effective team or the best team is 7. So that would depend on each particular country. We will, as you go through this process, and this is a very good question, it made me think, as you go through your process of designing the projects and implementing them, you will have your coordinators and mentors to support the process. We will also, and people know we're very good at WorldBeyondWar in terms of organizing, we will also have ongoing support from the WorldBeyondWar team and potentially Rotary Action for Peace as well, to guide the process of your projects. And these are things that we can be in discussions about. What we will do is set up a Word document, which will have steps for completing a project, and your mentors would be responsible, after meeting with you once a week, updating that document in terms of where you are with your peace project. And we at WorldBeyondWar would view that, and perhaps the global team would be involved if interested as well, would view those documents and provide feedback for you to work on. So it depends. We're not stating clearly that it has to be 1 project or a number of projects. You will have to decide that as your team. And again, it's like what good peace building is fundamentally all about: negotiation and communication. You decide with your team.
But something else might be also that you have to think about, is it better to have 6 or 7 projects that may be a bit more lightweight, or 1 project that has great depth, sustainability, longevity, etc., and has a really strong team behind it to make it happen?
Yes, and that's, you remind me that on that's true. Again, it's up to the different teams, but you have a structure that allows for flexibility. What we mean by that is that we found from experience oh, going through this, that it's not helpful to just say, go out there and do a project. You know, people need some kind of guidance or a structure to work within. So this is the structure that you will be working within in terms of your projects, which in a sense address most of the things within peace building work, right from negative right through to positive peace. Within World Beyond War, our globally recognized award-winning book lays out a blueprint for ending war and establishing just and sustainable peace, which revolves around 3 broad strategies. And you can choose one of these to address in your project. So do you want to address the role of women in peace building? Do you want to address disarmament issues, etc.? Or you could look at managing conflict without violence, which would be looking at international laws, or the role of civil society, or issues related to security, etc., or which is probably more likely and probably more aligned with the positive peace element. And what we're guessing, your projects might be evolved more along the lines of the broad strategy of creating a culture of peace. So issues related to establishing a culture of peace, increasing the role of youth in peace and security, which in a sense, this project, the program, Peace Education Action for Impact, is contributing to, because it's increasing the role of young people in peace and security work. So you will have that structure to work within, and you will be flexible. So a project in Canada will look different perhaps to a project in Venezuela, will look different perhaps to a different project in Serbia, etc. So there's a structure, but the structure allows for flexibility, which of course, peace building at the end of the day is about this dance between structure and agency, and we try and work with that dance in this program. So there we go. So there's any other questions, Alison?
Yes, please. First of all, Tasamo has his or her hand up, and then I'll give you the other questions. Tasamo, what is your question, please? Tasamo Frank? All right, let me just, can you share more about World Beyond War and who funds them, Phil?
Okay, yes, with pleasure. So World Beyond War is, who's created this in collaboration with the Rotary Action for Peace. We are a global grassroots organization with membership in 192 countries, and I know we have chapters in different places as well. Counting, we've got Helen Peacock here, who's a wonderful chapter coordinator in Canada, also doing wonderful work with Rotary as well, also a Rotarian. We've got Guy here from Cameroon here, who's a World Beyond War chapter coordinator. Our focus is trying to differentiate ourselves in 2 ways from other organizations. One is that we're global in scope, and 2 is that we're interested in World Beyond War. It says it in the name, you know, how do we move towards a world beyond war? And people will say, well, we've always had wars. We have not. You will find out we have not always had wars. War is a human invention, and human inventions can fade away. We know that in terms of apartheid and other things. So our issue has always been, how do we address, which we see as the biggest threat to peace on the planet, bar none, the war system? How is it that now 14 trillion is spent on containing violence around the planet? 2 trillion is spent each year on preparing for war. Half of that, in the US, comes from the United States. When you look at the issues of war, the 2 existential threats that we're facing right now, which it's not COVID, the 2 existential threats that we're facing right now are nuclear weapons and the climate crisis. And both of them can be traced back to, in different ways, the war system. The link with the nuclear weapons is clear, you know, that's very, very clear. And Helen and others are doing some great work addressing that. The link with the climate crisis is less clear. For example, to give some examples, the biggest polluter on the planet is the US military. The biggest consumer of fossil fuels is the US military. So in order to address the climate crisis, we have to look at the role of military, and we have to look at the Pentagon. So that is the work that we do. The way in which we do that is that we have three kind of campaigns that we work on. One is education, which is what I work on. So we have our book, we have our courses, we have webinars, podcasts. The other two areas that we work on are closing foreign military bases, because that in a way props up the war system. You know, how is it that we have most of the war bases around the world, of the US, by the way, in other countries? And then the other campaign that we have is divestment. So how do we divest money away from the war system towards more productive activities such as education, health, etc., which we need always and which we need particularly now in terms of COVID. So thank you for the question. That's a little bit about us at World Beyond War.
Sorry, Phil. To Samo, did you have a question? Phil, there was one other question, but I don't think we can answer it now, but I think we could put it up.
Yeah.
Somebody said, can you give a concrete example of an 8-week project? So maybe that's something we could work on outside of here and post it.
Yes, we can work on that. We can definitely do that as well. And some of you know, I also worked on and helped to start and develop another program called New Gen Peace Builders, and we put many programs together during that time. And in fact, the work that I did in the PhD and before that informed the work of New Gen Peace Builders. So we can draw on examples that we've put together of that as well. And actually in modules 5 and 6, we will give you at least a couple of case study examples of peace projects. So great question.
Okay, we can move on.
Okay, thank you. These are great questions, everybody. Thank you. So let's say a little bit about the impact. Who are the main beneficiaries and users of the program? So we know that there will be an educational outcome. So at least 130 youth, and actually it's going to be a lot more than 20 adults, will have opportunities to develop capacity, competencies around peace building. So theories, concepts, ideas related to peace building, peacemaking, peacekeeping, that they can apply specifically to their peace projects, but actually to their way of being with other people in the world. You know, so there's transferable skills that people will take away, which will inform their way of being with themselves and way of being with others. So how do we communicate with each other in more empathic, in more honest, in more caring ways? That's part 2, which we'll look at module 3 and 4. Then there's the action. Obviously, the idea is that countries will go and implement projects in their community. And then more broadly, the idea of communicating the projects is to influence the influencers. And for those that are interested, which I know that there is people on the call that are more scholarly based and interested in research as well, if you're interested, reach out to us and we can look at writing up some of the work in such a way that, you know, informs the scholarly field as well. So we are putting together alongside this work some work around the monitoring and evaluation, which we're working with potentially Columbia University, but also Cambridge University, to look at writing up this work as well. So watch this space. So there's a little bit about the outcomes. We know that, well, you know how you participate. Each country project team has 2 mentors, 2 coordinators and 2 youth. And it's the role of the coordinators more broadly to have the strategic leadership and be checking in with each other, you know, in terms of how the projects are doing, how young people are doing. When looking at projects and programs, and you're going to look at this in week 5 and 6, the real challenge is to balance the needs of the individual, the group, and the needs of the task. So you as country project coordinators need to have an eye out for, you know, are we addressing the needs of the individuals in our team? Are we addressing the needs of the country project team? And are we addressing the needs of the task of what we want to do in terms of, for example, putting together the project? We're going to look at this in week 5 and 6, by the way. Expectations. Okay, so we were talking yesterday, the global team and I, around it's important to kind of say out loud again. I know we've sent through this to the country project team coordinators, but just to say out loud again, what's expected, you know, with regards to this program. One is that we know that we accomplish more together, so we want to be in collaboration and working together. And you've on the bit on the right hand side where it says terms of reference, you might not be able to see that well, but all of the country project teams has been sent it. So to say out loud, part 1 is 6 weeks, predominantly online. And the idea is that you would spend 3 to 6 hours a week researching, reading, communicating, dialoguing, etc. online. The only exception to that is the 3 live sessions, which will be for 2 hours. And each live session will invite the facilitator for that part. So the live session next week will invite module 1 and module 2 facilitator. If you go through part 1 and complete all of the optional assignments, you will get a certificate of completion at the end, signed on behalf of World Beyond War and the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Part 2 is where you go out and do your projects. And again, 3 to 6 hours per week. And there would be at least 3 live sessions as well. We will be working on this as we move forward. So here's something I was just thinking about. How can we kind of say this? So this program is kind of like signing up for the gym. You might be thinking, what the heck? What on earth is this guy on about? What I mean by this is this. It's easy to sign up for the gym. It's easy. You're signed up for this program. But we know if we want to see the results, we have to put the work in. It doesn't matter if we have the best content available ever. It's about us working together. It's about you taking individual and collective commitment and responsibility. The success of this program, this first of its kind program, which brings 13 partner countries together, is not dependent on Rotary Action Group for Peace or World Beyond War alone. It's dependent on you. And this is, on one hand, kind of a scary thing because you have to go out there and do it. But on another hand, it's brilliant because you have the opportunity to co-create something new and so exciting. So it's about signing up to the gym, which you've done and you're here. And it's about putting the work in and going to the gym. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. I was trying to think of a good way of putting it. It's about signing up for this program and doing the work as we go along. And one of the distinctive elements about this program, which we designed it in this way, is that it's not just about study. It's not just about studying the topic of peace building, which is necessary, but not sufficient. What's needed is that you both study the topic of peace building and that you then go and apply what you've learned. So that's the whole idea of this. This is the justification of the model that we put together, the mixing of peace education and peace action. So before saying the next steps, I think we might have a bit of time for some questions maybe, or thoughts.
Well, we're reasonably okay on questions. Maybe what we need to highlight, Phil, is the need to do the sheets, the launch, and also to join us on a Monday.
Yes. Okay. So yes, we can talk about some Mondays. We've Alison, Rotary Action Group for Peace, and World Beyond War have been working together on Mondays for a session called Youth Voice. And the idea is to have a space, when we were thinking about it, a space for young people to come along and basically talk about issues that they're interested in. So as we move through the program, put in your diary, Mondays, 10 in the UK, which will be 5 EDT. So there's about youth voices. The other thing, I can say something about next steps shortly, but before doing that, what we'd really like to do is invite some people that are on the global team and some other people to say a few words about why they wanted to be involved with this program. So we spoke about
Bill,
this. Yeah.
We said we'd stop recording at this point.
Oh, okay. So is that me then? Do I need to do that? Okay, stop recording. Here we go.
So that nobody felt uncomfortable sharing whatever they wish to share.
I can pause it, right? Or shall I stop it?
Probably stop.